Tuesday evening, 8:47. The kitchen. You sit at the table, the same kitchen table you sat at last Tuesday, and you stare at the ticket. The numbers match. $5 million. Your wife is on the phone with her sister telling her about the dentist appointment scheduled for Friday. Your son is doing homework at the other end of the table. He has no idea his life just changed. Or, more accurately, his life is about to change for 7 years, and then change back. What does a $5 million ticket actually look like the morning after the numbers match? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a 7-year clock starts the moment those 6 numbers line up. How a $5 million ticket becomes a bankruptcy filing in roughly the time it takes a kid to finish elementary school. And which 2 decisions, made in month 1 and month 18, account for almost all of the difference between the windfall recipients who keep the money and the 85% who do not. Month 1. The post-win mania. $5 million on the ticket. After federal tax, a mandatory 24% withholding the moment the prize is paid out, with more typically owed at the end of the tax year, and state tax, which runs from 0 in 7 states to over 10% in a few others. You take home roughly $3 million on a $5 million ticket. The advertised 5 was always partly a marketing figure. 3 is what arrives on the wire. That wire hits a Thursday in late January. By Saturday afternoon, you have looked at 3 houses. By the end of the next weekend, you have made an offer on the largest one, $600,000 over the asking price, paid in cash. By the end of month 1, you have spent roughly $200,000 additional dollars on cars, furniture, gifts to family members who heard within 12 hours of the announcement, and an attorney to manage the new questions. The attorney is the only good purchase. You will fire him in month 4, because by month 4, you are doing the things he advised against, and his presence has become an obstacle. Look at the math on that. The house, plus the $200,000 of additional first-month spending, is roughly 27% of the $3 million you actually received. Gone in 30 days. That burn rate, if held, depletes the entire balance in under 4 months. The reason it does not actually deplete in 4 months is that month 2 is slightly less aggressive, and month 3 is more aggressive again. But the average over the first 6 months in nearly every documented case lands somewhere between 4 and 6% of the after-tax balance per month. This was William Post's first 6 months. Bud Post, Pennsylvania State Lottery, February of 1988. He won $16.2 million in an annuity payout. Within 3 months, he was $300,000 in debt against the future payments. Within 1 year, he had spent more than $1 million. Post is the most documented modern American lottery cautionary tale because the court records, journalism coverage, and his own late-life interviews are unusually complete. From what I have read across documentation, and from the smaller windfall cases I have watched play out closer to home, the pattern in Post's story is the same pattern that, on a slightly slower clock and a smaller starting figure, breaks 5 million. The principle varies. The clock varies. What does not visibly vary across all the published case material I have looked at is the underlying mechanism. Month 6. The first slip. By month 6, the relatives have arrived. Not all at once, they come in 3 waves. First wave, immediate family in week 1 and 2, openly. Second wave, cousins and old college friends in month 2 and 3, more carefully. Third wave, people you have not spoken to in 15 years, arriving in month 4 through 6, with very specific business proposals. Who is the third wave person in your life specifically? Picture them. They are real. They will arrive. You say yes to 3 of them. You loan $120,000 to a cousin starting a landscaping business. You give $40,000 to a high school friend whose mother is in a nursing home. That one feels like the right thing to do, and probably is. You put $80,000 into a friend's restaurant pitch that you would never have considered if you were still at your real job. Within 12 months, none of those 3 is paid back. 2 of them go entirely to zero. The third, the landscaping business, pays a couple of small installments and then stops. And the conversation with the cousin becomes the kind of conversation neither side wants to have at Thanksgiving. The Post case is the extreme version of the family dynamic. His own brother hired a man to kill him for the inheritance in late 1988. That is documented in Pennsylvania court records. The contract attempt failed and Post survived, but the family relationship never recovered, and several of his siblings sued him repeatedly over the following years for promised payouts. Whatever you think about your own family, and most people, asked in advance, will say their family would be the exception. It is worth knowing that surveys of lottery winners, most prominently the longitudinal samples summarized by the National Endowment for Financial Education, report a significant deterioration in at least one previously close family relationship within the first 18 months in the majority of cases. Run the numbers yourself. Roughly 70% of major U.S. lottery winners in the most cited NEFE summary have spent the entire windfall within 3 to 5 years. Roughly 70 to 85%, depending on which study you read and how the sample is defined, file for bankruptcy or are no longer net solvent within 7 years. That is the headline figure that almost every news article on the topic uses. What I think most coverage gets wrong is treating that figure as the punchline. The mechanism behind the figure is the actual content, and it is the part almost no news article is willing to walk through line by line. That is what the next section does. One pause before the hardest part. The next 2 minutes are the actual mechanism, month 18, where this stops being a narrative and starts being arithmetic. That is the level the others skip past. If you want this kind of breakdown that does not smooth that part over, hit subscribe. Then, keep going. Year 2, month 18, the point of no return. Here is where the mechanism kicks in. After 18 months, you sit with a new accountant, the third one, and look at the spreadsheet. The balance has gone from $3 million to about $2.1 million. Some of that was the house, some was the cars, some was the loans, some was taxes you did not see coming on the prior year's interest and capital gains. The house alone, the one you bought in month 1, generates $52,000 a year in property tax, maintenance, and insurance, with a heating bill you had not budgeted for. Your annual lifestyle is now running at roughly $480,000 a year. House, cars, travel, kids' new schools, charitable gifts, dinners, family allowances you set up in month 3 that nobody is going to ask you to stop. $480 a year is the new burn. The $2.1 million invested at 5%, which is roughly what a conservative dividend and bond portfolio yields, produces about $105,000 a year. So, you are spending $480 and earning $105. The gap, $375,000 a year, comes out of principal. Run the numbers yourself. $375,000 out of $2.1 million per year is roughly 18% of the remaining principal every year, before any compounding loss on the principal reduction itself. That is roughly a 6-year clock to 0, not 7. From the cases I have read closely, I would put the actual median figure at closer to 5.5 years for a windfall of this size, with the headline 7-year number reflecting the recipients who, in month 30 or 36, finally do something to slow the burn. The pure no-adjustment trajectory hits zero in just under 6 years. What is the difference between $3 million and $6 million in this scenario? It is roughly 2 extra years of clock. Not safety, not security. 2 extra years. The mechanism is indifferent to the size of the starting figure once the burn rate exceeds the return rate. This is where the logic turns. Winning the lottery does not make a person rich. It delivers a windfall, which is a different category of thing entirely. And the work of converting a windfall into wealth is the work of getting the annual burn under the annual return. Most lottery recipients never recognize that this conversion is a separate problem from the windfall itself. From what I have read across the windfall research literature, and from a couple of cases I have followed closely in my own circle, I would argue this is the single insight that separates the 15% of lottery winners who keep the money from the 85% who do not. It is the only insight. Everything else is downstream of it. Susan Bradley founded the Sudden Money Institute in 1999 specifically because she had been watching this exact pattern in client after client for the previous decade. Her framing, which has held up across roughly 30 years of casework, is that the brain treats sudden money as a fundamentally different category than earned money. Earned money arrives slowly enough that the brain builds a context for each dollar. Sudden money arrives in a single event with no context, and the brain reads the entire balance as a permission slip rather than as an instrument. That permission slip lasts approximately 90 days before the burn rate sets in. After day 90, the burn rate is the new identity. After day 300, the new identity has its own gravity. And reversing it requires admitting something about month 1 that most recipients will not admit until year 4 or later. Year 4. The loans, the lawyer, and the lifestyle that will not bend. By year 4, the principal has dropped from $2.1 million to about $700,000. You have refinanced the house twice. You have a second mortgage on it. You have a personal loan against the second car. Your monthly cash flow is now significantly negative. The bank statement reads like the books of a small business that is failing slowly, and without anyone in the family wanting to acknowledge the slope of the failure. How does the 84-month version of this look from the inside, in year 4? What I have come to understand from the case files is that year 4 is rarely the panic year. Year 4 is the year of slow, private accounting, done at the kitchen table after the kids are asleep, with a calculator and a notebook nobody else has seen. By the time the conversation reaches the spouse, the math has usually been settled in the recipient's head for 2 or 3 months already. You start the conversation with your spouse about the house, selling at a loss, pulling the kids out of the new school, canceling the family allowances you set up in month 3, the ones you cannot quite bring yourself to call, because the call means acknowledging the slide to a sibling or a parent who will then tell other people. Work it backward from year 7. Every year between year 4 and year 7 is a year in which the same conversation happens at a slightly higher emotional cost. The house goes in year 5. The cars go in year 6. The boat, the one you bought in year 3, which was the third most expensive object purchased during the windfall period, goes in year 6 as well, sold for roughly 38% of what you paid. The second largest expense by year 6 is the lawyers. Bankruptcy preparation, in most U.S. jurisdictions, requires a sustained sequence of attorney consultations, document production, and trustee meetings spread across 6 to 18 months. Year 7. The kitchen. Tuesday evening, 8:47. The kitchen table is the same table from the opening of this video, the same placemat, the same pendant light overhead. Your son is at college now, on a partial scholarship and a federal student loan, the same school you would have paid for in cash if you had asked, in month 18, the question you did not ask. Your wife is in the next room. You are looking at a stack of paperwork from a bankruptcy attorney, the third one you have spoken to this year. The $5 million is gone. The $2.1 million in equity from the house is gone. The $120,000 loan to the cousin is gone. The $80,000 to the restaurant friend is gone. The cars are gone. The boat is gone. The remaining position, after all the unwinding and after the attorney fees, is roughly negative $40,000. You owe more than you have. Bud Post died at 66 in 2006. On Social Security disability and food stamps. He gave one extended interview the year before his death. The line that survives in nearly every academic citation on lottery outcomes is, short, he said, of the original win, that he wished it had never happened, and that the whole thing had been a nightmare. That is the line that closes the papers. There is no comeback chapter. So here is the actual content of this video, in 3 rules. If you ever cross a windfall, lottery, inheritance, business exit, settlement, lawsuit award, large unexpected bonus, the 3 things that change the 7-year clock are these. Rule 1. Do not claim the prize, sign the check, or accept the wire for as long as the situation allows. Most U.S. state lotteries allow between 60 and 180 days to come forward. Inheritance and settlement situations generally allow weeks. Use the entire window. Tell no one outside your spouse and one fee-only fiduciary. Sign nothing. Rule 2. Do not move the money for at least 60 days after it lands. Park it in a federally insured account, spread across institutions if the amount exceeds the FDIC limit at any single bank. The 60 days are not for research. They are for the part of your brain that wants to move it to stop wanting to. Rule 3. Do not buy anything that costs more than 1% of the after-tax amount during the first 90 days. On a $3 million after-tax windfall, that is $30,000. Below that ceiling, you can spend on anything you want. Above the ceiling, you wait until day 91 minimum, longer ideally. The house, the car, the boat, the family allowances, all of those sit above the ceiling. All of them wait. 3 rules, 3 numbers. 60 to 180 days before claiming, 60 days before moving, 1% before buying. The rules look small on paper, and they are easy to dismiss in advance. In practice, they appear to be most of what separates the 15% from the 85%. What I think is the hardest of the 3 rules to hold, having watched a small number of people try, is Rule 3. 60 days of doing nothing is uncomfortable, but achievable. 60 days of telling no one is uncomfortable, but achievable. 90 days of not buying anything above 1% while sitting on $3 million and watching the people around you wait for the first signal? That is the rule that breaks most recipients, somewhere around day 45. Ask yourself honestly. If you crossed the windfall line on a Tuesday evening at 8:47, sitting at the same kitchen table where you check your mail and help with the homework, could you hold all 3 rules for the full first 90 days? The 85% who lose it answer that question on month 4, not in advance. Tuesday evening, 8:47, the kitchen. The clock starts the moment the numbers match.